I want to talk to you about my friend Charly Crawford. He's a 10-time NFR qualifier.
Charly Crawford, time to just shake it out and win. Got it on him fast, set
there
up.
We are.
Here's a day
nice
money
run.
lead. You betcha 3-8.
That's an absolute perfect run. Timing was perfect from the time the first swing is up. He's got the control. Charly made it happen by being timed up with his horse with the steer, and being able to not just rope, but to pick that steer's head up without changing the momentum for the heeler at all.
We know his beautiful wife, Jackie, all three of their beautiful children, the founder of the Liberty and Loyalty Foundation, which this year will exceed $1 million raised for military and first responders. I've said it 1,000 times. Charly, it's time to rope, nod and ride, whip and spur. I want to welcome you to the Charly Crawford Podcast. Let's ride.
The Charly Crawford Podcast is proud to partner with NRS. Don't forget to shop this destination for all things Western. NRS has everything you need from boots, hats, apparel, bits and spurs, saddles, ropes, feed, and more. Visit their flagship store in Decatur, Texas, as well as other locations in Granbury, Texas, and Wickenburg, Arizona. From your hat to your boots and everything in between. Shop NRS in-store or online at nrsworld.com. All right, Martin, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Thanks for having me, bro.
Appreciate it. Had a busy morning. You had a morning, it sound like, for what most of us have when we're out here trying to get shit done in the Western industry.
Oh, typical me. I mean, just a little light ranching, I guess. Back to my background, New Mexico. Had some fresh steers get out on the highway and had to go rope them out of a guy's pasture. It's kind of fun, really.
Some real cowboy shit right off the bat.
Yeah.
It's
like that song, Me, more cowboy than you. Yeah.
They say sometimes you can't see the realest cowboy from the road, but in this situation you could.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. Yeah. I did some cool stuff this morning. Nothing I ever did before. I drug two of one time.
Yeah.
So.
What did the sheriff, was he any encouragement with you or no?
Not so much. He wasn't that proud of me, really.
My biggest fear living that close to a main road is that.
Yeah, I live right off 281, and sometimes it can be sketchy, I guess.
We had a tornado this week, a couple days ago, and did anything affect you over there?
You know, I was fortunate in the tornado part, but earlier in the week, like Tuesday, we had probably as bad a wind as I've seen for such a long time in one day, and we had a huge tree right next to our house blow over. And, you know, I do some lumberjack stuff this week, too. But really lucky it didn't hit the house.
It was some panhandle places in New Mexico type wind. 50,
it was,
like 50,
I think West Texas was here. I mean, you couldn't see the sky.
It was brown.
It was horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
That day, we actually went and roped at our buddy Craig Moore's place, and it was almost too windy in the covered arena. I mean, it was a bad day.
Yeah. Yeah, we had the tornado, and I thought I heard it. It seemed like around 4:00. I've never seen a tornado. I've just always heard like that sound like the freight train.
Right.
And I remember hearing that kind of sound, and I got up, and it was right about the time the hail started real hard, and then you could see the lightning, and the only time, I mean, in the dark, it's not like you can see it, so I was trying to time like when the lightning would strike and kind of light the sky up to see if there was anything out there. And I never seen anything, but it did sound that way. Well, then the next morning we got up and Creed's soccer game, and then just trees down everywhere. Then everyone's kept asking if we were all right.
Right.
Constant text messages, and then
I had a few of those too.
It was right behind our house, like less than a
I'm probably
mile.
12 miles south of you here, so I think all we got was rain. I don't even think we had any hail. You know, because I heard the rain, it woke me up the same thing, but nothing that I was really. It wasn't that abnormal.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it went right down that 30-25 right over there by the college, and it destroyed, it wrecked some stuff. I never heard of any casualties or horses or anything.
I heard of some guys, sheds, whatever, a lot of trees.
Over. Yeah. I seen where tipped some horse trailers over there at Aaron Macy's, and I seen quite a few trailers tipped over. It was wild.
I've seen a few tornadoes, because I've lived, New Mexico and Texas longer now than I lived in New Mexico, but like driving ahead of me, you know what I mean? It's kind of cool, but a little bit eerie at the same time.
It's where you want to be, off at a distance,
right?
And in daylight.
Yeah, it was daylight both times. So
that's what gets a little eerie when it's at night. Well, there's quite a bit of things that happened throughout the weekend. Quite a few big events. Did you keep up with the World's Greatest Horseman there with the?
I do a little bit, but not a whole lot. I'm more team roping. That's about all I've really followed.
I never have, just because I never got the opportunity, really, because we were always rodeoing, and we become good friends with Erin Tormino, and got to be a fan because of going and watching her, and it's just fun watching like the best trainers, the best horses, like what they can do. It's so cool. But yeah, Erin, she kicked their ass at the World's Greatest Horseman, the first female ever to win the World's Greatest Horseman, and won it by 4.5 points.
Yeah, those horses are amazing. The horses are really amazing. It's pretty impressive, really.
Yeah. Yeah, the fence work is when they do the fence work, they run them down the fence. That one, and they sell that thing out every year. Like we got to get tickets from either Aaron or Equibrand, because you can't really.
Get them what's crazy? I actually had a buddy that had tickets and invited me to go, but I had something I had to do and I couldn't go. I kind of wanted to go check it out. It would have been fun to watch.
I'm telling you, man, at the end, man, it is so loud when they run them off the fence, and that's when it's cool. That's when it's really fun to watch. But yeah, it was cool to see her. She's only been roping for a couple of years, so it was cool to see her get in that event and then win it. And then what about the timed event?
Well, that thing itself is, I've been asked to go help before, but I never have, because when I was rodeoing, it was always, the timing wasn't right, because we were always planning on doing this or that, and I couldn't take that week off. But that deal's impressive, man. Them guys are unbelievable. That kid's amazing, man. He can do a lot of things.
Yeah, we grew up, we rodeoed with his dad.
Right.
And, so I went up there and helped Trevor and a few other guys up there at the timed event. And so I thought I remembered Ketch being out there on a little paint pony just chasing stuff out. So he's been a part of that. It's in his blood, watching his dad there. And then, it's pretty cool. Last year he won I believe he won the junior event.
The junior deal, yeah.
The junior Ironman. And then this year at 19, the youngest ever to win it, 109,000. Yeah. Won 3 out of 5 rounds.
Pretty dominant, right?
Yeah, won it by almost 100 seconds.
Yeah.
Stuck it on him.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, I was watching the highlight reel. There was no accident, was it?
No, there's never a doubt, I don't think. Mm-hmm. Just to win the first 2 rounds just back-to-back is pretty impressive.
And a lot of young kids. Seeing a lot of young kids in the leaderboard, the top 3 or 4 holes.
Well, the older guys, man, they're just father time's catching up.
Yeah.
It's a little bit, it's reality,
I think that junior Ironman, too, is bringing some
Well,
up,
and then the guys, it brings a lot of, they want to do it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's impressive that Casey Jones is still right in the mix, man. For a little bit there, he's kind of in the mix,
Well, I think I thought he was second. Kyle Lockett was second going into steer wrestling. And I think they told me he took a 60. And that was what I'd heard. I didn't get a chance to watch that last deal, but he was hanging with them right there. But
yeah, I remember, we rodeoed with him. You know what I mean? He's impressive.
Yeah. Well, so I know you come from Villanueva. Man, your stats are unbelievable from Villanueva, New Mexico. Resistol Rookie of the Year back in 1991. NFR average title with Luke Brown in 2010. You made the NFR 16 times as a healer and inducted in the Texas Rodeo Hall of Fame. So, it's impressive to make 16 NFRs. But coming from Villanueva, New Mexico, did I say it correctly? Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
What was it like growing up out there? How did you get started roping? Because you and your brother both roped and both made it, which is pretty cool. That's something that you don't see a whole lot of where both brothers make the NFR.
Yeah, my younger brother, John Paul, he made it a few times, and, he's 10 years younger than me, so I was already pretty much gone whenever he was kind of, not gone, but I was gone rodeoing, so, and so he, he's probably 12, 13, 14, and starting to figure out how to heal, you know what I mean? But, I did get to, the years that he made it, we buddied, and kind of showed him the ropes, and we were together all the time, so it was fun, and I, we grew up in my parents' ranch out there, so me and my dad basically started roping at the same time.
Where is Villanueva?
It's kind of northern New Mexico. I actually went to high school in Las Vegas, New Mexico. That's probably a more familiar town, but it's 35 miles away from Las Vegas, one way. So we'd catch a bus to went to high school there. So one way, it's in the middle of nowhere. So it's between I-40 and I-25. So if people are familiar with like Klein's Corners, it's 13 miles east of Klein's Corners off I-40, and right along the Pecos River. You can throw a rock to the river from the arena. And then 13 miles to I-25. So it's just a small village along the Pecos River in New Mexico in the middle of nowhere.
So did you guys, so you ranched, and so I'm guessing you guys roped?
Yeah, my dad, we got into roping, and he built an arena and bought steers, and
So your
we
dad
just
roped?
Yeah, my dad roped, and we went to jackpots on weekends still. I mean, every weekend for forever, till I left for college. And we just figured it out on our own out there. What I mean? We just roped. And, when I was a kid, obviously, like I said, it's in the middle of nowhere. So we had one channel that was fuzzy. So that's all I did. If we weren't working, I was roping the dummy or riding or roping steer. And I loved it. I was just, ever since I remember, just kind of a student of the game. If I learned, back, I'm old enough that we didn't have video cameras, but I learned so much just from still pictures. And I love to find photos of people that I idolized and just watch their position, their arm, where their arm was, where their tip was, and just try to mimic that. And, I have my own unique style, I guess, but that's basically how I learned. And then my dad always, we didn't grow up with a lot of money or nothing like that, just typical ranching family. But he always found a way to make sure that I had a good horse. And, and that makes a big difference when you have a horse that is good enough to progress, you know what I mean? So, and then he took me and we were competitive. We won. So it was fun growing up doing that.
What were the jackpots like back then? Was that during the 80s era?
It was in the, early 80s,
and then,
because I graduated high school in 86. But in that era, there was no numbers. I mean, if you wanted to rope, you entered. And some weeks you were going against guys that didn't rope very good. And some weeks guys would stop in. They heard about a jackpot. I mean, never seen Al Bach in my life till I was 13 years old. Mm-hmm. Clay Cooper, you know what I mean? And they're like, oh shit, who's these guys? Mm-hmm. And then it was on, it was for real, you know what I mean? But got to meet a lot of people growing up. And then back then there was a lot of junior, senior type ropings. And I actually headed for the most part then. I didn't even start healing till full time till probably I went to college in New Mexico State. I didn't even take a horse the first year. But that summer after that first year of college is when I really started to heal. And then I talked my dad into let me take a horse down there and got to rope every day down there with my buddies, Darren Simpson, Mike Harriet. And that's when I really started to figure out how to rope. And obviously I got better at roping and worse at school, but that's kind of how it all progressed.
Who was a lot of the healers that you looked up to at that time? And then how were you able to look up to them? Because now we got Facebook, now we got the Cowboy Channel, now we got the X Factor, all that stuff. How was it that you were able to study them or watch them other than when they showed up the jackpots?
Mainly just, try to find news articles, Roper Sports News, we read about it. Basically, if there was a slide, like Santa Fe had a big jackpot, I'd go watch the Open. New Mexico had the fair in New Mexico in the fall. The rodeo was big back then. So my dad would let me take off to go watch the slack, watch Leo, watch, Al Bach, like I said. Jake and Clay were young, but they were one of the, some of the best guys in the world. And then there was a lot of good in New Mexico. There was a lot of people that roped really good in New Mexico at the time. Not that there isn't now, but it seemed like it was more of a hub because it was more west than Texas. Texas was not as popular yet. There was calf road, it wasn't even mandatory forever here. So there was a lot of rodeos back here that didn't even have team roping. So, but everything in the West had team roping. So Arizona, New Mexico, that's kind of where we, and then, grew up with guys that rope good, Steve Priscilla, Jeff Midland, like I said, Darren Simpson, Mike Harriet, several guys like that, and we amateur rodeoed a bunch, so we went to a lot of rodeos. You see different guys from all over. Wade Masters was one of the best in the area, at the time. And Carl Wilkin, John Wilkin, Byron Wilkerson. There was just so many guys. Robert Murphy. I mean, there's just guys that.
Yeah, I remember a lot.
Them guys are just crazy talented. They could have. They roped as good as anybody in the world. They just didn't go as hard, I guess.
Yeah, I remember those names a lot when I went to school in Arizona. They were legends.
And like when I was in college, I only went to New Mexico State, and it was just a club, so it wasn't really a full-on rodeo team. But I roped a Rube Woolsey the one semester I went. He's he made the NFR. And there's guys like Nick Sarche, Denton Payne, all them guys that went on to make the NFR, And then I figured, man, I can win a lot more jackpot, and I'm going to go to the college rodeo. So when I went to college, they just started the ABC stuff. So, and I was just starting to heal pretty good. So
The
I thought
ABC stuff, was that kind of like a ranking?
Yeah, it was a number system like now. So A was obviously the best, B, C. So it was a pretty wide spectrum of guys. So for a little bit there, I'm a B. So I could rope in the A if I wanted to, the A B, the straight B, the B novice, the pro. I mean, there's so many ropings, and I was doing really good. So I thought, man, I'm not gonna see it. I mean, I'm a college kid, and a bad week was clearing 1,500. You know what I mean? So then they said, man, we're gonna have to limit your entries. So they limit me to entering 4 times. So that's even better. I get to keep more. So I'd pick my best 4 guys, and it was easier on my horse. I had one horse, so I just tortured this poor horse. So then, I picked my best 4 guys and still won the same, but I got to keep more of the money because I didn't enter up. So that lasted a few months, and then they stuck me in the A. So now it's sink or swim, So it's just like from the penthouse to, now you're going against the best guys.
Mm-hmm.
So either you put in the work or and move forward or.
You said you went to college in the mid and late 80s?
I started in 86. Yeah, I graduated high school in 86. So 87 to probably 89. I didn't finish, but I went 3 or 4 years there. And one of the guys that I learned a lot from, Paul Petska, actually lived.
So the Peskas were from New Mexico, correct?
Yeah, he's from Carlsbad, but he was working for a guy that owned Bill Tire that owned the cell barn in El Paso. So every day I would drive to El Paso and rope a Paul Petska. Every day, like clockwork. All my buddies are doing college boy stuff, and I'd get up, I'd drive to Paul, rope all day, and help him ride his outside horses, and he helped me fill my permit, and I just went there every day, like it was my job, you know what I mean? And I learned so much just about horses, and I was fortunate as a young guy to get around old guys at an early age, and learned a lot, so got to meet guys stopping through like Walt Woodard. First time I met Walt Woodard was right there at Paul's. All these guys I got to meet, they were my heroes, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so got to rope and learn, and I filled my permit. I remember calling my dad from Tucson, and me and Paul won the round at Tucson. It's like on a Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever it was. And I'm on cloud 9. I'm just a kid. Just filled my, on my permit, won the round at Tucson, and he goes, well, when do you go to school? And I was like, man, I don't. that didn't go over so good. You know what I mean?
Went from high then to low.
Right. So, but see, I was down there roping, and I missed the class that I was supposed to sign up for. I missed the deadline or whatever. So I just stayed down there, didn't say nothing. I was paying, I'm paying for my own school and everything. And anyway, I was learning how to heel. That was my school, I guess.
Paul was, I thought, a legend just from what I had heard so much of, was how well he could use his horse, put him on a real short rope,
Unbelievable.
And was really known for being able to be real easy to heel behind because you knew where they were going.
Well, everybody thought, dang,
and a winner.
How's he so fast? He went so far. But everything was so smooth and calculated. Because even then, Corey was probably 7 or 8 years old on a paint pony, and he could bag him back then. But Paul didn't waste no time. He got a great start. He had great horses for one. He got a good start every time. When he got there, it was on the horn. He did go close, but when he got there on the horns, tight, and you know exactly where they're headed. So you can just tee off every time because it was so predictable. So you can go further and be faster a lot of times. You know what I mean? And he was good at it. Like it was good for a kid like me knowing I got a lot of chances to throw, and so that gives you a lot of confidence. You know what I mean? You can get in a good spot if you know where they're going to be. You know what I'm saying? So it was good as a kid to have somebody that's going to turn a lot of steers for me, to get a lot of chances, and then, not only chances to win, but chances to maintain my confidence and not get, because it's easy to get thrown to the wolves early as a kid,
So in 90 was your permit year, and you got to rodeo a little bit in 90?
I rodeoed just around there. So, you know what I mean? Just filled my permit. And then in 91, I actually started the year with Darren Simpson, which you probably know Darren, but he was a lot like Paul. Like, he never miss, turned a lot of steers, and actually that was really good for me as well, because he turned so many steers that I could throw fast and I'd get good looks. So I caught a lot of them. So then I got, in the middle of July there, Brett Boatwright asked me to rope. And it was one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make in my life. You know what I mean? Because me and Darren were buddies. We're both from New Mexico, and we're, have the same goals pretty much, but we're right there, 18th, 19th, 18th, 19th, just on the cusp of making that, top 15. And I decided to go ahead and rope at Boater. And I made the NFR my rookie year, which is not very many guys have done that. You know what I mean? But I thought,
Boater was in his heyday at that time.
He was one of the top guys. You know what I mean? He had just won the average like the year before with Steve Northcutt, I think. And he was notorious for roping with younger guys because, he just liked that for some reason because he could do what he wanted to do. You know what I mean? And Boater was just, he's a different cat, right? So, I mean, he was a really great roper, but he had a lot of other things going on. So he could be the kid's going to do whatever he wants to do. You know what I mean? And then he's going to turn a lot of steers for money. So, So me and Boater we ended up making the NFR, and I felt bad because Darren didn't. You know what I mean? And it was a hard choice. It really was. And but looking back, I mean, it's kind of maybe the right choice, because I got opportunity to rope with a veteran as a rookie. You know what I mean? So, and I think that's part of why I was able to do what I've done because my first 4 partners were old guys. You know what I mean? So I roped a Boater my first year, then D. Pickett's the second year. And he was one of the greatest of all time. You know what I mean? And then the next guy I roped with was, after D, we roped a little bit. Then in 93, I didn't really rodeo that much. I amateured and stuff. But I learned a lot.
What
early,
slowed you down after making the NFR a couple of times? What slowed you down to kind of come back home?
I don't know. It just, I didn't really have because D was going to do something different, and I didn't really have the partner that I really thought I wanted, you know what I mean? So I just amateured and, tried to save some money and all that, and I didn't go to very many pro rodeos in 93, so, and then in 94, I was supposed to rope with David Moats, David was an older guy, kind of still in his prime, kind of still
running head horses.
Yeah, still legit, and I bought my card a day late to enter Denver. And Dave gets mad. So I don't even get to rope him. We're done. So I'm thinking, and then I didn't really, I wasn't really set up quite yet anyway. So I'm sitting there and I was just going to plan on doing the same thing I did the previous year. And this is probably, I haven't told a whole lot of people. Some people know this story, a lot of people don't, but it's probably the reason I end up where I'm at now. But anyway, the Sandhills roping in Odessa is going on, and T and Rich are roping together, and Rich cuts the tip of his thumb off, gets hurt. So he's out for a little bit, and T's kind of in a panic, I guess. And I guess Rich, somebody told him that I had my card, I'd bought my card and didn't have a partner. So he calls me. And I'm in my parents in New Mexico. He calls and he tells me, "Hey, Rich got hurt last night. I wonder if you could fill in probably till after Houston. Houston was in March then." And I said, "Yes, sir. Where I got to go and when I got to be there." So he tells me, and so I get off the phone. My dad said, "Oh, who was that?" "It was T. Woolman." "What's he want?" "Oh," and I tell him the story that Rich got hurt. He wants me to fill in. He said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Dad, it's T. Woolman. I got to go." He said, "Do you have any money?" I said, "I got $800. I don't even think I told T this story. And my dad says, "That ain't no money." I said, "Dad, it's T. Woolman. I don't need money."
It's a win.
So he said, "Well, I can't help you." I said, "Dad, I don't need help. I had a good truck. My horse was good, a good trailer, or my horse was good enough anyway." So I show up to T's probably on Wednesday. We're up at Los Fresnos Saturday night. So we practice a few days there. I ain't told T no different that I don't have no money. So never have told him to this day, I don't think. And we go to the first rodeo, won first, 1,800. I said, "Oh, I'm good. I'm good now." So then we go to Tucson. We win like 30-something hundred. And then we go to these jackpots all around Texas and we do good. And then that's where I met Jody, my wife Jody. Her parents put on the Bud Light Texas Team Ropings. And that's where I met her at a jackpot with T. Woolman and down there by Houston at Full Shirt. I'm with Wayne Shaw, T. Woolman, Zane Bowers, and Wayne Shaw, calls her over there. "Hey, I want you to meet somebody." So he introduced me to Jody there. So then that's how I met Jody. And then the next, I get her phone number and I start, talking to her or whatever. And I'm staying at T's, and then we go into some of these Bud Light ropings, blah, blah, blah. So then I rodeo all winter, not all winter, the next month or so, go to San Antonio. I think we win another 3,000 there. So I'm looking up, and we enter Houston. We win second at Houston. I win like almost 7,000 at Houston. So I'm in the top 5 now. And but I remember just winning second at Houston. Now I'm at the trailer and I'm bummed, because that was our last rodeo.
Oh.
Rich is coming back. So I don't know what I'm going to do now. And it's not 10 minutes. Mark Simon comes around the corner. He goes, "What are you doing this spring?" I said, "Man, I don't know. I don't really have a partner. Rich is coming back." I said, "You want to go to California?" I said, "Yep, I do." So I head off, start opening with Mark.
That's when Mark was in his heyday.
Mark was one of the top 5 guys too.
Was that Carl Lewis?
Carl Lewis was
the head horse he had?
Was the head horse.
But yeah, I remember old Carl Lewis. That sucker could smoke.
So I said, "Yeah, I want to rope." So, so it was a little bit different. It was a different style. Carl Lewis was, at the time, Speed had T had a really fast horse that belonged to Wayne Shaw, and he'd run all the way to him and handle him quick. And it was kind of my setup where I threw fast, a lot different than I do now. And when I started over with Mark, I tried to ride the same position, and it really didn't fit. You know what I mean? Because Mark would reach a little more, and he'd hit him pretty hard, but then they'd open up. But I was trying to throw in the hop where they weren't ready to heel yet. So, and Mark, Mark, but Mark, as blunt as he is, he goes, "You rope good, but you're not very smart." He said,
they were blunt back then, wasn't
oh, yeah. I mean, it's sink or swim, Yeah. I said, "Either you figure out how to get to the inside and catch 2 feet, because when I turn him for first like I do," he said, "all I need you to do is catch 2 feet." He said, "I'm the quarterback. I determine what we win, not you."
Yeah.
He said, "You're just a wide receiver. You know what else?" He said, "Wide receivers are a dime a dozen." I said, "You got 2 weeks to figure this out." So I said, I went to just mash and pull into the inside. And then we get on a heater. I mean, we're one of the best teams going. So we're in the top 3 all year, top 2. And again, toward the end of the year, and back then it's just one world champion, So Mark has like 1,200 more than me. He goes, "Man, I understand if you want to split, because there's not very many opportunities to win the world."
Well, explain that a little bit, because that's so foreign now.
Right.
So for people that don't even understand what that even meant.
So back then it was, it was not like it is now where it's a header and a heeler, top 15 in each. Back then it was basically the top 15 guys' money.
And just the team rope.
And just the team rope. And so if you're 16th, doesn't necessarily mean you get to go to the finals. You know what I mean? A lot of the teams paired up and you form 30 guys, but you could get a guy that's 45th and get invited by a guy that's in the top 15, and he jumps the 16th guy possibly. You know what I mean? So it was just team roping. So it was just one world champion.
One world champion.
So they didn't have it. The year after, that's when they started the header heeler deal. But back then it was just one world champion. And Mark, he said, "Man, I get it." I said, "We don't have an opportunity to win the world very often. If you want to split, I understand. In fact, I would do the same thing." So me and T started roping again, and him and Rich roped. So at the Cow Palace, I get ahead of Mark. So I actually go to the NFR in the lead that year. And anyway, I didn't rope very good at the finals, roped several legs. And then Jake and Clay set the record on 10 that lasted forever.
In 94.
And they ended up, they were 57 point whatever, 58, whatever it was. And then that was always the goal of mine to break, and I came close a couple times, but that's the year they did so good, and they ended up winning the championship. But that was a storytell year, So I ended up, the next year I started roping with Kevin Stewart, and he lived in Glenrose, and Jody was going to Tarleton. So back then, Stephenville wasn't what it is now. They didn't even have, it was
college, dairy farm, and peanuts.
That's it.
Yeah. Or dairies and peanuts.
There was, like I think Tuff and Ty and them guys have started to hang out here, but it wasn't the cowboy capital by no means then. And that's not the reason. I ended up here mainly because Jody was living here, and then Kevin lived 30 miles away. So
was that in 95, 96?
95 is when me and Kevin started roping, and we made the NFR 7 years there. So
I remember you telling me some stories a long time ago. I think we were at the Windy Ryan one time, and I was talking about doing some. I was rookie. Right. I think I did something like, I think I was after California. I think I went back home to Oregon, was hitting some of those rodeos. Then I drove all the way back down to Windy
Right.
and then all the way back home. And I was like, man, how dumb is this?
Oh,
you were telling me about
my rookie year when I was roping with Darren,
or was it Darren?
With Darren, we had a 2-horse trailer and a single cab truck and no camper. And we drove from in earlier part of May, we drove to Stephenville because it was going on in May then, and Mineral Wells. And they added like $1,000. And I remember thinking, who in the right mind would live here? Because it was one of those weeks where tornadoes, it rained, fire ants, and it was humid. It was humid. I was like, golly, this place is miserable. And then I end up living here. But anyway, we leave New Mexico. Then we go to Redding, California, Cloverdale, and then, mind you, in a 2-horse and a single cab truck. Go up into Canada, rodeo there to Cloverdale, and then drive right back to Fort Worth to the Windy Ryan, and wonder why my horse is done when he was done. His knees are, in the two, and that's just what people did.
That's what it was. What? Because when I had T on the podcast, and it was cool because he was talking about in the '80s, where places he went in a 454.
Right.
With a lot of guys wouldn't even know what that is. That's a gas truck. That was one of the highest powered gas trucks back
Probably
then.
4 or 5 miles a gallon.
4 or 5 miles a gallon. I remember when my dad and I, we rodeoed in a 78 Chevy, and we could go from Canby, Oregon to the Dalles. Right. And that's when we had to stop. So that's 90 miles.
Right.
So, you had to stop all the time, huh? And then the floorboards.
Oh, yeah.
No AC.
Oh, you can't hear. They're so loud.
Give you the windows rolled down, too.
But, we didn't have no internet. We didn't have cell phones. We read books. Me and Mark, we'd buy a book and read books. You know what I mean? But I remember one year, me and Mark were rolling over the 4th, and we blow the engine in his truck. So we borrow this guy's truck, and it's a F-250, and the catalytic converter's out in it, but it's got propane tanks, so you can run it on propane and gas. We could go about 80, 90 miles on the gas tank and about 100 miles on the propane tank. So it had dual tanks. We'd go about 300 miles and have about probably, 30, 60, probably 90 gallons of fuel, 100 gallons of fuel, and go about 300 miles.
300 miles back then, that was a long time. That was a long way.
I know, but we'd have to plan to be able to get propane at the Flying J's that had carried propane, because this truck would get about 4 miles a gallon on gas and about 3 on propane. And we did this all 4th of July, and Mark was, man, he loved the road. Like, he's going to enter. He's going to put our name down. You know what I mean? And he'd always say, it don't matter what it costs, we're going to win. Because, we'd do Pecos in the morning, Greeley Slack in the morning, Prescott that night. That year over the 4th, I think I drove from, we had that truck, but we had a guy in it, you know what I mean? And he's having the plan hit. But we drove, the only time that we were in the truck together was from St. Paul to Eugene. And how far is that? 140 miles or something? And we went to every one of them. I think I won like almost 10,000 and lost money. You know what I mean? So, whereas like me and Kevin were more planned out. The best 4th I ever had was Kevin. We went to 6 rodeos and won almost 20,000. You know what I mean? But our deal was more about taking the best run on the cattle, riding our best horses at the best rodeos, and giving ourselves the best chance to win.
It seemed like right about that time was when the guys started. It seemed like the first time it was just the Wild West.
Right.
After a while, it's everything. And then it seemed like, the midnight, because I remember that's my permit year, about 96, when I started listening to guys talk, and you started hearing more strategy.
Right.
For sure.
And like I said, I learned a lot from old guy. From Boater, I learned how to just get around, because he sold horses, so we're trying horses on the side and going to, we went to 120 odd rodeos, you know what I mean? You go to 100, you know what I mean? And I learned how to just get around with him. With D, I learned how to enter, more of the work ethic, because he was a workaholic. Practice for purpose, you know what I mean? Put in the work. And then T was more about, like a winner, just, a winner's mentality. You know what I mean? We're going to beat you down. You're not beating us. We're the guy to beat. You know what I mean? Like, T was a warrior. You know what I mean? T was the guy, like, there's a lot more 2-hitters, 3-hitters back then, but like, back then, people were more passive on the first steer. Not like it is today where it's a 1-hitter all the time. But T's like, hey, these guys, they're going to back down on this first one. We're going to go try and win this first round and then we got them. Now we don't have to draw the best one to win the average. So he was about, we're going to try and win money this first steer. And then now if we draw a runner, we got an option to place in the average. If then we draw good again, we get 3 checks. You know what I mean? So he was more about that. I learned that from him. And then Mark was a little bit like that, more about hey, it's just us against the world. You know what I mean? They're after us. You know what I mean? So, and then with Kevin, it was more of a team deal. Like, we're going to do our part. You know, we're going to build our run. We're going to more of a strategy. You know what I mean? So, and I was pretty fortunate to rope with guys like that early to be able to do that. And then, you know, me and Kevin were we caught a lot of steers. You know, if it was a 2-header, 2 and a short, we almost always made the short round. You know what I mean? So that was our deal. We could catch a lot of steers.
You guys rode for what, about 8 years?
We made 7 NFRs, yeah.
7 NFRs, because that's the one thing I noticed, like with your partnerships also, with starting with Kevin and then Luke, was the longevity you had with your partners.
Right.
And then it seemed like, wasn't right about Kevin Stewart era, about 95, 96. That's when the bumper pulls got
then you started with the little 4-horse Capri campers.
The Dodge trucks were getting a lot more reliable.
Cummins everybody had a Cummins
diesel.
in, right? Mm-hmm. You know, so, and like I said, it's just more.
Kevin was telling me a little bit about, like, when you guys maybe went down to Corpus and something about lighting the
oh gosh.
Because back then you had to get out to light the shower.
We had that was okay. So we leave Guthrie, Oklahoma, and we're headed to Corpus, and there's 4 of us. It's Kermit Moss and Izzy 95, Kermit Moss and Tyler Magnus, and you had to light the pilot to heat the propane
from the outside.
From the outside, it had a little compartment deal. Anyway, I have this light. We're in my rig, and I've got a Capri camper, and it's a refillable lighter. So I go in the store, and I think I'm buying the right gas. So I'm trying to put it on inside the store, and I don't realize it's just going down my arms. But it's the wrong one. It's just a liquid gas that's going down my arms. So then I hit the switch to see if it's going to light, and I light myself on fire. And it's 2 or 3 in the morning, and I'm running through these aisles just trying to fan this, and it just singes all my hair off both arms, my hands. And there's this black guy, and he goes, "Oh my God!" He just runs out of the store, and I'm burning myself up.
Yeah, that's when it's funny, all the stories back then, because now we get to watch it. You know, what I mean? Now everyone's got a phone within 2 seconds. You're recorded.
Yeah, I have some. Yeah, there's a lot of them stories. Yeah, I did that to myself. I just lit myself on fire. I remember Slack the next morning in Corpus, man. I have blisters all on the back of my wrists. And no hair on my arms. The worst part, I'm just looking at it with both hands, and I got it all over me. And when I hit that little flint deal, it just lit up.
Kevin said he looked, said he could light up. He said, whoa. He said, once you got lit up, he said, man, I couldn't quit laughing. He was running up and down the aisle.
Yeah, I was on fire.
Literally.
Yeah.
Oh, it's funny.
So
yeah, you guys were up a long time, and that was the one thing I remembered was the consistency.
Yeah,
like you guys were Iron Man. You just never made mistakes.
Yeah, we were a solid team, So, and then I kind of got burnt out a little bit, probably 03, 04 right in there, and I went home. I thought I was done. You know what I mean? My horse was pretty played out. I didn't have my horse was getting older or whatever. So I went home and started a little deal with some friends of mine, and I still roped. I roped a lot, and then I amateur rodeoed one summer. JoJo Lamont asked me to rope at some amateur rodeos, and so did Al Bach. Calls me. He goes, "Hey, Joel's 19, not 9. He's senior in high school." I said, "Do you mind taking him around to some amateur rodeos and I'm gone rodeoing. If you don't, just take him around. If you don't, because he roped good, Yeah. And then I had JoJo as well, so a lot of them deals were entered twice back then. So I have 2 young guns, and I bought a horse that was ready to start going that I liked a lot. I just jackpotted on him some, and so yeah, I'll go. And then talk about just dominate with these 2 kids. Like they could both just hang it on one, and I just pull inside and just 2 feet every time, and was just killing them on the weekends at these amateurs. You know what I mean? So JoJo asked me, "Hey, do you want to go to the winter rodeos?" I said, "I'll go." I said, "If we do good, I'll keep going." So we have a good winter. Joe has that. He had just got that little horse Bull, and he was wild. I mean, I remember at San Angelo, he bucked after the flag. He bucked all the way to the catch pen.
Seemed like those 2 personalities,
right?
They kind of matched.
But then that horse just got good, man, and we did really, really good and made the finals. So and that was fun roping with a guy that was hungry. So it kind of lit a fire under me. I'm an old guy now, and I knew how to get around. I knew how to enter, and all I had to do was kind of manage him just a little bit, not too much, because he was so talented, unbelievable talented, and we did good. You know what I mean? So then the next year, he had a chance to rope with Brandon Adams, so he did that, and then Luke calls me. Like, I actually started the year with Kevin Daniel, and we did really good. But for some reason, I always kind of wanted to rope with Luke, and he calls me and said, "Would you like to rope?" I said, "Man, I'd love to rope." So we started roping. We hit it off right away. Like, the first few months were a little bit, I don't think we did as good as what Luke wanted to do. You know what I mean? But then once he was comfortable understanding that, hey, I'm not going nowhere, because I'm a loyal guy. You know what I mean? I was never one of those guys that if you miss, I'm looking over the fence to find somebody else. You know what I mean? So once he felt reassured that we're trying to figure this out, and it doesn't even matter right now in March.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These little rodeos they're not as relevant as you think that they are. And once he realized that he was comfortable doing that, and then we started just killing them. And me and Luke had a really good run there for 4 years or whatever it was. And
yeah, because 2009, that's the year you guys blasted. You know, I remember you guys going to the finals, and it was 2009, if I remembered right, wasn't it? When you guys went in, last out, correct?
Yeah, we had a chance.
Last man chance for, if I remembered right, it was for the average title as well.
Yeah, we had a chance to win the world. We had a chance to set the record on 10, and we had a chance to win the average.
But I remember he said that, like, there was maybe something that went on at Omaha where there was some different money won.
Well, yeah, but then it was a little bit of my fault, PRCA fault, whatever, but I wasn't able to count Omaha. So there's 20-some-odd thousand that would have made a difference at the end, but, that's neither here nor there. You know what I mean? But anyway, we still had a chance to do good. You know what I mean? So anyway, but the worst part about the whole deal, I remember the night before telling Jody, as long as we don't have that red steer, I think we can catch any of them easy in the pin. What do we have? The red steer. If I had never said that, I promise we don't. That steer was 4-0 at the finals that year. Every header that run him missed him because he was strong, and you couldn't haze him. He was big horns to the right, and you know how that back end gets there in a hurry. You know what I mean? Looking back, you'd probably be better off trying to break the barrier. You know what I mean? But, in hindsight, but we had a chance. I mean, we were in position to do it. And we still won second in the average, had a great week, and we won second in the, we jackpotted really good all of the 2 or 3 years. We won a lot of them. That's the most money I ever won was with Luke.
That's what I remember. When I talked to Luke about it, and he was like, "Man, I'm so sick." And I remember it. I remember walking back there and walking down that tunnel, and he just got done wrapping that steer up, and couldn't get it off, couldn't get it fished off. And I remember I was like, "Oh man," because I remember the time, like, that was hard. I mean, that's everything right there within a split second. And I remember him, he just the look of devastation, and he was telling me that, he said, "Man, I get to the back end," and he said, Martin was like, "Man, that's the best finals I ever had."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Man, no pressure, like never once like said anything bad, never fought, always like the guy that showed, almost just a steady guy, where there was no pressure to rope."
Well, and that's, and I think that's how I had to be for me to do good. You know what I mean? Because a lot of guys weren't as, I'm not as talented as a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys that rope better than me. I tell this when I do schools all the time. I said, I'm probably more like a duck. You know what I mean? Like,
I steal that saying all the time.
You know what I mean? My feet are going 900, but I'm trying to because I learned that from, I got to buddy with Clay Cooper when I was my second year. You know what I mean? And I just watched him. Like, he don't even realize how much I just watched him. And he didn't really care about what anybody else did. All he cared about was what he did. That's all he could control. And I just watched that. And he'd be to himself with the jackpots. He didn't get all caught up in all the BS and bullshit and all. He was there for money. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I got that from. You know what I mean? So, and the one thing I tell people that I give lessons to or whatever, I said, listen, the battle isn't against everybody else like you think it is. It's against each individual steer that you draw. So if you can make the best run on what you got, it's almost always good enough, because it doesn't matter what level we're at. Fewest mistakes wins. And I'm okay to win third when that steer is a third place steer. You know what I mean? And it's so hard to turn a steer that you can win fourth or fifth on into a steer that you can win first on without taking a lot of risk. And then, like Jake said, hey, pros don't leave money on the table.
Yeah.
Whenever you're supposed to win third, you win third. When you win first, it's because everything you drew good, you wrote, it's got to line up. Because if you look at percentages, because I'm a big numbers guy, if you look at percentage, if a team wins first 10 times in a season, they're killing it. It's not as often as people realize. You know what I mean? Not like a guy like Dustin or Driggers, they're going to win first a little bit more than others. But if you win first 5 to 8 times, that's a lot. You know what I mean? But it's not hard to get money every time, and checks add up. So I try to make sure that. And the one thing when I roped with Luke too, and even when I just had this feeling that when I showed up somewhere, I expected to win. You know what I mean? And a lot of people, they kind of they hope to win. You know what I mean? And I think that's the difference between the guys that can make a living doing this or not. When they get somewhere, they expect to do good. And then when they don't, yeah, it hurts. I mean, I hate losing as much as anybody, but I'm not going to dwell on it. You know what I mean? When I was a long time ago, when I was young, I said, when I left the rodeo grounds, I'm over it. I'm done with it. You know what I mean? We can talk about it, but we're not going to dwell on it. You know what I mean? We can talk about it, try and fix the mistake, because at the end of the day, if you eliminate mistakes more often, you put yourself in a position to win more often. And if you can control because it's hard enough to win as it is, and you make it harder on yourself. If you're always dwelling on what happened in the past, you have nothing that you can't change. Well, then that's something else that's going to hinder you and keep you from winning the next time. So I think that's a big deal.
Well, I thought it was pretty cool that within 365 days, you and Luke were in the same situation.
Right.
Again, a little bit different. The fact that the world title was a little bit harder to win, but
right. But we're still in contention, right?
We're still in contention because that's hard enough to win that average anyway.
Right.
You've had as many chances
as you
had to win it.
I won every hole but first till 2010.
And then 2010 within 365 days, and you get that average title. That was a pretty cool turnaround. And the fact that not letting last year affect that next year.
I know we just jumped. I think we had money wise probably won more money that year. You know what I mean? Because we won second in the BFI, we did all kind. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. If you can just develop a run with a guy and you're both on the same page, it's fun. And
so I thought your strategy was always good. I thought your mentality was always good. Your levelness and staying calm, was always good. But you talk about the team that you've built, between starting with D Pickett to the guys you talked about with Kevin Stewart to Luke Brown and JoJo and, some of that stuff. I know Kobe Lovell was in there as well. And so when you're getting, that run with that new header, what's kind of the strategy? What are you guys trying to look at? Because when people say building that team, as well as anyone, how does that start?
Well, and I think it changes from the time when I was young to toward the end, like when I worked with JoJo, Luke, Colby. So it was more about I'm not trying to say make them understand, but more as a team understand that it's not about just today. You know what I mean? It's more about the whole season. You know what I mean? And so, and I think that getting comfortable with controlled aggressive, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, we want to win. We want to go at these steers, but we don't want to do it in a way that it's too risky. You know what I mean? So, and I think just practicing and trusting that part of it, you know what I mean? And then implementing the work into the run and seeing if we can catch a lot of steers in a row, you know what I mean? To be able to trust it, you know what I'm saying? Because it's hard to win out there, you know? And the thing about it is too, like the young guys, they get caught up in the moment a lot, you know what I mean? So it's easy to fall a victim to that, you know what I mean? So, and I think just learning I think experience is a big deal because you learn not only how to get around, how to enter, all that helps, but just understanding that you can go through a little bit of a slump and not be able to fight through it and then be able to do good, you know what I mean? Because right after that, a streak's coming, you know what I mean? And it's just like Michael Jordan, whatever. He wants the ball, you know what I mean? And I think once you feel like you want the ball and you want to be able to put yourself in a position to win every day, then, but you got to trust it. You know what I mean? So, and I don't know if that really answered your question, but it's more of once you get the young guy to buy into wanting to do that, then you got it. And those are the guys that.
What I always thought was that, in my, watching from the outside looking in, was how well you were able to adapt your heeling to your header style.
Right.
You talk about Mark Simon, when
right.
he was needing to cut in, block and tackle. And then you're talking about, some of the other earlier guys where you're able to get around them and heel. And, then those were 600-700 pound steers back
right.
then, bigger horns, older cattle. Then now, them steers are probably a year or two younger. Now they're 400 and some pounds.
Right.
The styles change, but you were able to adapt so well. But, it's like Luke, JoJo, those guys, they get it on so tight,
right.
that head loop. I loved how well you guys studied the angles.
Right.
And you could tell watching you guys rope that you knew where the heeler was at. You knew where the steer was going with the head rope, and then you knew how to feel like that. That's the part I loved watching, was how well you could adapt to those. Because even though that they're all handy, they're all got a little bit different styles
right.
and how they kind of handle their cattle or their head horse.
And I think a lot of that goes back to, because I learned a lot from Mark that year. So just understand what it takes that day. You know what I mean? Because in whatever horse the guy's riding, you know what I mean? So, and I had some really, when I roped to Luke, I had the best horse I ever had in my life. So they were easy to ride, different styles.
You said you had 3 of them.
I
remember right, didn't they almost all look alike?
They're all half brothers.
Yeah.
So I had 2 that were really good. And then the practice horse was better than a lot of people's horse. He just wasn't as good in the box. So he's hard to trust at the rodeos, but he worked phenomenal. So I was able to get really, really good practice, realistic practice from that horse. So, and then, and when I roped with, I would listen to a podcast that Wesley talked about the other day about quality more so than quantity and working on. So that's when I roped with Luke, I had them 2 good horses and then a great practice horse. So I didn't run that many steers a day. You know what I mean? But when I did practice, it was for our run. You know what I mean? And Luke had several, so when we were done, he'd go practice with Patrick, whoever also. But when we practiced, it was about building our run. So we were on the same page without even talking. You know what I mean? We ran so many steers together at home that we could talk about it just a little bit, and then we didn't even have to talk. We knew the scenario before as it's happening. You know what I mean? Like we kind of knew what we had to do before we nodded our head. But sometimes you gotta, Omaha and audible and go to, but we knew exactly what the guy was going to do just from being able to run so many steers together. Like I knew if he did this, the steer was going to do that. You know what I mean? And he knew if I was here, he needed to do this. You know what I'm saying? So, and I think that just comes with putting the time in. And you watch Wesley and T-Wade now, their run is phenomenal because they're perfecting it. And to say you perfect this, you never do. There's always room. You know what I mean? But they're as close to perfect as any team right now.
Yeah, because you've seen Jake and Clay back in that
right.
era, trying to perfect that run, and then you've seen Speed and Rich.
I know, phenomenal. Like Rich is the best I've ever seen about realizing where he was in the arena. He's the best I've ever seen about knowing exactly when he could take another swing and when he had to come with it.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen anybody any better. You know what I mean? And that's, I learned a lot from them guys. You know what I mean? Me and Rich were buddies, and I try to implement a lot of that into my own unique style. You know what I mean? And I think part of being able to do that is being able to have a cool head on your shoulders and be able to think through the run quickly. You know what I mean? And process information quickly. Because there's so many guys that rope good, but if there's any adversity at all, they go to the spot throw or and they take too much risk. You know what I mean?
I do.
And some days it doesn't require that. I mean, there's times you do have to pull off shots. I mean, there's time, but you got to recognize when those days are on the fly. You know what I mean? And part of being an older guy and being to these places several times, you kind of have an idea before you even get there what it's going to take that day. And like back then when I was jackpotting really good, I knew what it was going to take within 10 steers of the rope and starting. You know what I mean? Very seldom did it deviate from what I saw in the first 10 runs, what it was going to take to be in the top. You know,
so you could kind of recognize a lot of what the start was like, what the steers were like, and it was going to.
And then you could game plan accordingly, just by watching just a handful of runs. You know what I mean? And then I would just try and just get in my own zone and just, hey, I'm going to do my job. If I do my job, it's good enough. And trusted that, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. One thing I always noticed too was like when you were in a money situation, there was no mistakes. It was Iceman. And so like for a lot of guys that are in those high pressured situations where when they got to come in and within the third, fourth hop, they've got to be able to clean up by then. So like first off, what is your focus point coming through there? What are you seeing? What are you focused on to make sure that them feet get in that heel loop?
My biggest deal is I wanted to put my horse in a spot that it was easy for him to react to whatever happened. So not too high, but not too far back, not too tight, not too wide. You know what I mean? Just somewhere where, and every horse is a little bit different. You know what I mean? But know what I'm riding and know what he's capable of, and put him in a spot that he can react easily, or I can help him react. And then I look to have a solid shot by the second hop. Like I very seldom threw on the first hop once I got older, because there was more money on the second hop. I figured out a long time ago I can win more if I catch them all right here. And if I can second hop everything, it's going to come tight faster. My guy knows where I'm going to throw. He can finish. And sometimes it's faster. And then Rich was really good at that. Mm-hmm. So, and I think I learned a lot from that, because you could just, and there's no bobbles. Because I figured out a long time ago, like Charles and Britt, because I was always a student of the game. Charles and Steve, smooth is so fast. You know what I mean? So if I could second hop everything, and then if it wasn't there, I could squeeze and fight through it and go another stride or two if I had to. But very seldom, unless it was the only option that I throw on the first hop. Only because I could replicate that easier. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then like when I roped with when me and JoJo did the best is when he took one more, I could take one less. So we could make that run more consistently. And that's hard for a header that's got so much game to do, to have the discipline to do that sometimes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot they call it team roping for a reason, right? So just trying to be the most efficient team that you can be without with minimal risk. You know what I mean?
This episode is brought to you by Corvive. Corvive has a great line of products that I believe in and use every day. Their product Hydrate isn't just for quenching your thirst. It's packed with vitamin C and zinc to give your immune system a little extra boost, especially in this Texas heat. I don't do a clinic, podcast, or a pre-workout without their product Energy. It keeps me locked in, it's convenient, effective, and it tastes great. Jackie and I drink it all the time. I drink it before I compete, and it's really good for those all-night drives. I don't have a post-workout without their protein. It's grass-fed, packed with collagen, peptides, amino acids, and has no chalky aftertaste. It's a great meal replacement or a way to rebuild after a hard workout. Core Renew covers all your gut health needs in just a single daily serving. New customers get 10% off their order by going to corvive.com/Crawford. See the podcast description for the link, or check the link in my bio on all my social media channels. What was your rope of choice? What was your line, and what lay of rope did you use when you were heeling?
I've used classic ropes my whole career. So, in the early days, it was a moneymaker. But once they started with the 4-strand rope, I used the power line. And back then I used a medium hard. And then as I got older, hard, the firmer end of the hard medium. Anymore I use the medium, but I've always loved the power line.
Did you feel like your lays got softer with age, or do you feel like your lays got softer when the steers started getting a little smaller?
I think both. I think a little bit of both. But as even when I was rodeoing, I'd keep harder ropes with me. If they had big steers, they required me to have more loop down there. And obviously the softer rope was easier to keep turned over, and I can keep up with them faster hopping steers. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But, and then father time gets you too. So, you get to, at home now, I use a head rope all day long, But to me, I think that you really need to use a rope that you can turn over and control, because the loop's got to work, right? You got to be able to control it. If you can't, if you're fighting, it's not doing you much good. Because there's guys like Corey Pesca use a medium soft, you know what I mean? So, but it's more about he can handle rope so good, he can maneuver it, and it's easy for him to turn it over.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. Most people can't turn over the rope good enough. You know what I mean? And that's the fight. You know what I mean?
I remember Lacey or Luke was telling me about one time that you'd had enough of one of your ropes somewhere, and you threw it out. And Luke said, Lacey, she's so nice. She just seen it out there, and she put it back in your rope bag again. And then you come back, and that rope's still there. So you threw it back out again. And then she was like, He said that was the only time that he'd ever seen Martin mad. But like, you still couldn't see it though.
Right.
The only thing was, he was like, you'd had enough of that rope. That rope was not making the cut.
Yeah,
but Lacey didn't know, so she kept putting back your rope.
Lacey's the nicest person in the world, so she's just gonna do whatever to, you know what I mean, to. Yeah, but it wasn't my fault. It had been the rope's fault. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
he said, I don't know who keeps putting this rope back in my rope bag, but I don't want it.
Right. Yeah.
Kevin was telling me about, I think, when you guys were in Mississippi. He said that you got your hat in your dally or something like that. It went over your head or something. He said something
I've done a lot
about
of crazy things.
Yeah, he was telling me about that. He said the next rope, and he was trying to put rubber on the top of your hat.
So one time,
in case he needed it.
For whatever reason, I got the slack behind my neck, and I dallied, and it just pulls my head down to the saddle horn. I don't know how I did that. I've done that like 2 or 3 times in my life. I don't know if I'd leaned forward so much.
That is a bind.
And I got the rope behind my neck, and I dallied, and it just about put my forehead right in the saddle horn, burnt the back of my neck. I don't know how you do that.
He told me, he said he was trying to put some rubber on your straw hat. The next rope, he said,
yeah.
Well, I would say
crazy things happen.
Yeah. I would say that so much I've heard about you too was your entering.
Right.
I've had a lot of DMs, on my social media platforms where people reach out and talk about, hey man, I'd love to hear about the entering. How do you enter? Because I don't remember it. No one else that I've talked to knows it. There's no rule book on entering. Correct?
No.
There's nothing that tells you how to do it. There's nothing to tell you what any of these terms mean. So like when you're entering, do you still enter guys or?
Well, I haven't in a couple of years, but I did for a long time when I quit there. You know what I mean? So, but like I said, I got to rope with the old guys early, so they taught me, and I asked questions. That's the thing. The young guys, they don't give a shit. They don't even ask. You know what I mean? And it's so much easier now with the internet. You just do it online. It's simple. Back then, man, you had to plan ahead.
Mm-hmm. I remember alarms just always being set.
You had to plan ahead for you had an 800 number 234-772. You know what I mean? And the trading, like when I roped with Kevin, like he kind of entered then, but we kind of talked about it. You know what I mean? So I joked that he'd enter and I'd fix it. You know what I mean?
What he said.
You know what I mean?
He said he was a great fix-it guy.
So, but I learned how to trade from D. I learned how to enter from Brett, T and Mark. Mark was great at entering. He was good at it.
So what is some of the lingo? Because like, is there any myths on like, if you're buddied with someone, and your card doesn't hit? And what I mean by card doesn't hit, you don't get what you want. Well, then you start using you start messing with everyone else's card number to see if they're hot or hit. Is that a myth, or is there some truth to something?
Man, I think it's more of a myth, but we all did it. You know what I mean? We all did it. And then there was times like so my card hit good last year at Greeley. And Greeley was one of the rodeos that you had to have you had to have the middle. You know what I mean? So
what's the middle?
Okay, so back then, the middle was the end of the first round, started the second round. You know what I mean? So you let you get in and out as fast as possible.
Because that's what was so hard about Greeley. They'd have a few first before that.
Right. So
then they would have a slack.
Sometimes they'd have split performances. You had to figure the numbers. Mm-hmm. You had to know how many, and like I knew all the secretaries. I knew the contractors. I knew you had to find out how many they're going to run per perf so you could figure out the numbers. You had to keep track of whose turn, you know what I mean? Because
Greeley was always the hardest one to see.
Yeah, because they had split perfs.
Split perfs. Mm-hmm.
So you had to know how many they're going to do in each perf and how many are in the split part and what, and I was big on, I didn't really go for what they call the nuts all the time, where it's the dead middle, where you're in the, the 10 teams that end the round, start the round. I was more about.
So what that middle means is like where they had a perf on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Slack was on Monday.
Right.
And the rest of the teams, only a few teams came back where you got both of them on Monday.
Right.
Then everyone else would come back Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for the short round.
Right.
So only a few teams got to be there one day and then go amongst the rest.
There'd be a huge guy, let's say be 30-something, 40-something guys asking for 5 spots. You know what I mean? Where you could back it off and there'd be 13 asking for 10 spots. You know what I mean? But you had to be on top of all that. Or say the slack, X amount of guys got them in the slack, but then you're guaranteed to go the same day in the afternoon perf or the night perf, but you still had time. But all you had to do is, but you're guaranteed a second run on the steers and you're guaranteed to be able to get out of there. So I'd stay on track, on top of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, people don't realize how it's an advantage to be able to watch your steer go. You know what I mean? It's an advantage to have an idea what they do. And it's an advantage to not have to drive back and forth. So
that way with everyone knowing what, like when he says reruns, like that's
right.
What, and you get a second run.
Yeah, it's really a second run. It's really a second run, but you get to watch your steer go, and you have a pretty good idea and almost all the money majority of the money is won on the second run of the steers. I'm gonna say probably 70% of the money is won on the second run of the steers. Yeah, the guys can blast one the first run. I'm saying they can't, but the majority of just getting money is on second run, or And it's changed now. There's a lot of back-to-back rodeos, and that changed as towards the end of, like when I roped with Luke and all that. That's when all that kind of started. So you're in more like a one-header. You know what I mean? But still, you still have to take the best chance at the better rodeos to go towards the end. Because even if you're going towards the end, you still have what you got to do. You know what I mean?
So like say Reno and places like that, to where it starts on a Friday, ends on the next Friday.
Right.
It's all back-to-back. You all run slack. And then a progressive round, the top teams go on a perf.
Right.
So how would you enter those? Is there a few different strategies on how?
To me, it was more about taking the best run I could at the best rodeos. And maybe I have to leave Pecos out or leave Prineville out. You know what I mean? But I'm going to take the better run at the rodeo where it's wins the most money. You know what I mean? Instead of so many guys get caught up trying to do too much, instead of giving herself the best chance at the best rodeos riding their best horse. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, those checks add up a lot faster than the $1,200 check that you had to drive an extra 8 hours and take an early run at Reno just to be able to go to another rodeo. You know what I mean? So that, for me and Kevin, that was a huge part of our strategy. Because we both had a good first horse and just okay second horses. You know what I mean? And speaking of that, I got a really good story over the fourth that me and Kevin did, and I just thought of this now. But we had made the short round this was the year that we went to 6 rodeos, but we made the short round at Pecos, short round at Greeley. Cody had a short round that year, so but the only thing about Greeley and Cody, the short rounds were the same afternoon. So one's at 1 and one's at 4. So we're gonna have to charter. So we line up a charter with some bronc riders, Tom Reeves and some other guys, and we got a King Air lined up, and they ride broncs, act, team rope, and we're 10th out at Greeley, 2nd out at Cody. So we're coming back second high team at Cody, and we're 10th at Greeley. So I tell them guys, hey, we got a guy right here. Once we rope, we're going straight to the airport. Don't leave us. So we run our steer, hand our horses to somebody, haul butt to the plane, get there, no plane. So. And we made a good run at Greeley. We don't even know what we're winning because we didn't stay. And we're second back at Cody, which is a better rodeo. And I run up to Charlie Horkey. He's there, and he's got the Gulf Stream. He's waiting on Charles and Britt and Cody and several other guys, Blair, And I run up to, hey, have you seen another plane? Yeah, some bronc riders just left on a plane.
Oh, they left you.
So he goes, and I said, God dang, they left us. He said, man, don't worry, we got room. You can get on with us. So I'm anxious because I think, man, we got to get going here. And he's just hem-hawing around. Them guys show up, and there's just no rush at all. So we get on this Gulfstream, and it's an unbelievable plane. And I don't know if you know, Charlie Horkey has always been great to team ropers. So we get on this Gulfstream, it's got couches in it. They serve us lunch. You know what I mean? And then he always used to fly by the rodeo, so we do the flyby at Greeley. We get to Cody. He's got a car waiting there. We get to Kevin's wife, Ember, has the horses at Cody. We get there before the rodeo starts, right? So they're doing the grand entry, and I'm just riding my horse around. I got plenty of time. Anyway, here come the bronc riders running. So I'm on my horse. I lope right next to Tom Reeves, and he's running with his bag, and I lope next to him. I go, hey, don't worry, you got plenty of time. And you thought he had seen a ghost, man. So we pass him in the air, get there.
That thing could smoke then.
Yeah, it could. I mean, the King Air's fast, but that Gulfstream, just pass him in the air. I lope next to him and say, hey, man, you ain't got to run. Just slow down. You got plenty of time. So anyway, Charlie, he don't charge us a penny. We don't have to pay for the other one either. And we end up winning like third at Greeley, second at Cody, so. But it's just crazy how things work out, man. It's just how things just find a way to work out.
Yeah, you guys caught a lot of steers, and like I say, the entries, and that's the hardest part. It seems like about with so many young kids where, everyone talks about being able to get in with that veteran. Yeah. For one, you learn the strategy, you learn the run, you learn how to, know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to, there's the easy money. Don't leave that up there. Okay, this hard money. Doesn't matter if this is not the place to go catch. Now we press, knowing all that stuff, knowing what the rodeo's tendencies are, but this the entering because there is no rule book.
No.
Knowing what, invalid means or valid means, knowing what, generic slack compared to, regular slack, and so there's so much unspoken language that goes on.
You just trial and error and you just figure it out, Yeah. And there's a lot to it. I mean, there really is.
It's almost like In-N-Out. There's so much more to In-N-Out than just cheeseburgers. You got animal-style fries.
Yeah, stuff you don't even know about.
4x4, 3x3, and that's just a little bit I don't know. There's no menu on it.
And stuff you don't even know about. You just got to figure it out.
you got to ask some other guys that have been there enough.
Yeah, for sure.
That's funny. So what about, I always heard too, like say your trades, how were you so good about staying on top of trades?
Well, I think it's harder now, you know what I mean? Because it's all online and you got, you know what I mean? But back then, I built a pretty good rapport with everybody in the area. You know what I mean? So, and I think one of the reasons I was able to trade is if I could trade, I'd trade too with the circuit guy. You know what I mean? And so many guys try to big dog these guys. You know what I mean? But I was always nice to everybody. You know what I mean? Or hey, if I didn't need it, I'd let them have it. If they needed my trade, I'd let them have a trade. You know what I mean? But the biggest deal is like, I knew when the books closed and I was on it within seconds to get the list. You know what I mean? And then I'd saved the numbers. You know what I mean? So I back then you had to write the number. So I could beat people to the punch. You know what I mean? And then, like I said, I had a rapport with a lot of them. So I was able to, and they liked helping me out. You know what I mean? Because of that. You know what I mean? But the biggest deal, I was on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that early bird gets the worm.
Right.
A lot of those tendencies had to do with trades. That was a good analogy.
Because I know there was times, Jody, my wife, she'd be like, I said, I can't right now. I got to be by the phone at 11:01. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
And I'd have an alarm set and I'm on it. You know what I mean? And then I'd look at the list and I'd know who to call first. You know what I mean? Instead of just going down on the side, read it. Like a lot of people that trade, they're like, damn, I'm going to try to get the guy that's 10th out. And they work their way up to first out. But I try to get the guy I knew I could get first. You know what I mean? That way I for sure had one. You know what I mean?
Had one.
So
what about payouts? I'd always heard too, it's like guys talk about like as soon as you had callbacks, like, all right, 34 teams over here. Well, Styles and added 4 money rodeo is going to pay $1,200, $31. Like you knew so well, like even payouts.
Well, you're up for a living. You know what I mean? That's just, you just learn it. I'm pretty good at just, not that I'm a smart guy, but I'm pretty good at stuff like that. You know what I mean? Just numbers. Like even entering, they're like, Kevin, he'd keep a log. Right? I never wrote nothing down ever.
You could just retain it.
And retain it.
No kidding.
Like, and you didn't have to write when I was up, wasn't nothing, and never had an issue. Like even when I entered Jared Fillmore a couple of years ago, I never wrote nothing down, even when I was entering him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was entering him in Lightning, and I was like, he'd call me, hey, when I'm up, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you're up, blah, blah, blah. And hold on, let me write this down. And I didn't have none of it wrote down. You know what I mean? I'd just look at the sports news every morning, what opens, what closes. And I already kind of made a plan for that week prior to that. You know what I mean? But never wrote down what time does it close. All I'd have to do is remind myself to set an alarm because I'm liable to be doing a lesson. You know what I mean?
Yep.
To make sure I didn't miss the books. You know what I mean? But by then, it was already starting the internet stuff. So it wasn't as bad.
The internet stuff was kind of the tail end of my career, so I only got to do it a few times. But
right.
It does help a lot, too, just, knowing little things like how is, if a guy's going to be up within a few hours from Greeley to Cody,
right.
Is there an airport available? Yeah, it's right there.
Right.
Okay, we're going to try to make Window Rock. Can a guy fly in there? Yeah, it's right there by the fairgrounds, So kind of knowing, all right, I'm stuck over here, there's no chance because there's no airport. Well, then you Red Lodge, there's the same thing.
Right.
There's right there by the arena, There's a place to land, so.
Yeah, so, and then, and then amateur rodeos too, man, I knew what, like I rode with Tyler Magnus, right? You did a little bit. So He tried to overdo it a little bit, but there was several times, hey, there's a good rodeo that we're going to drive right through, nobody knows about, that we can go get 1,500 at and go ride our second horse and make a good run and help maintain. You know what I mean? I remember entering a rodeo in Mandan, North Dakota in 95, and Kermit didn't want to rope because his back was down, so I heeled for Tyler. He rode Kermit's horse, and I roped with Kevin, and I knew it was a good rodeo. There was a lot of people there, so we rope and made 2 decent runs, you know, but we're in the slack and they're still got all the perfs and all that. Anyway, it rains like cats and dogs. So we end up winning. I ended up winning first and second. And I called Jody and said, hey, did I ever get some money from a rodeo in Mandan? Yeah, you got some money orders. How much? $3,500. Just at a rodeo that you're just driving by. You know what I mean? So stuff like that, it helps, you know what I mean, get by. You know what I mean? Helps get to the next one sometime.
Yeah, Tyler was one of the guys that I credit to so much for my career, giving me a chance to work for him and then hauling me around. That's when he was roping with T. Woolman, and, you know, T was quality over quantity, and Tyler was just all
quantity.
You know, he had all the horses. He loved it, and he was just, you know, headed, heeled, just loved it. Well, then I get to jump in there with him and head for him, and I rode good and roped good. But just that strategy of learning how to win, you know, like hey, whoa, settle down here. This is a 5-header,
right?
You know, this ain't a 3-header, you know, or 2, you know, whatever it was, like, you know, managing, okay, the risk, you know, this is the run here we're trying to make. Okay, then we go to Northside that night. Okay, now go ahead and, but everything was hit that start. He got it because it was so much of learning that barrier, because that's what I thought T was just a magician at, was just that welding that barrier. So there was so much that, you know,
he was incredible.
Tyler
at
watched
that.
it kind of happen and helped me kind of mold and find that as well. And so, yeah, just that guy he loved it, man.
I think T and Clay Tryon are so similar in that aspect, as far as they could miss it just a little bit, but their horse is running full speed through it. You know what I mean? But more often than not, they're pretty much in it. You know what I mean?
I never started seeing floating at the line until I started watching the guys reaching more.
Yeah, the back east guys, they leave early, swing early.
Yep.
And you know what I mean?
Because when they would leave, I'm like, yeah, that's not going to get out. And they got out, and I'm like, and that worked. I'm like, how did that work? I'm so used to seeing them just.
Well, you know, in our era, with bigger arenas, and you had to rock the barrier and use your horse more because they're out there a little bit. Yep. You know, and where them guys, they grew up in the east, where
they're right there.
You know, the you know, smaller arenas, and
it seemed like a harder running horse almost was in your way.
Almost hindered them a little bit. Yeah. And you know, you look at guys like Driggers and Speed that adapted to the change and you know, could do both very, very well. You know, even Dustin, you know, he's amazing. He can do it. He can do it at a big arena. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That performance that they had over there at San Antonio, man, was just.
Oh, they're you know, I still follow it every day. You know what I mean? I love it. You know what I mean? So the start that they've had, not only rodeo and jackpotting, man, it's pretty dang good. Like, that kid's amazing.
Yeah, I think we're going 3 months into it, and he's got to be close to 100.
Right.
Won 100 already, I bet.
Yeah.
Just talking about all the stuff that he'd won so far, from San Diego to the jackpots, 1-2 to Mid-Odessa, and good out there in Arizona, the jackpots. And
you know, and I've been, you know, now that I've retired, I've been heading a lot, and I just amazes me how the pro headers can ride a high-powered horse across the barrier. And that's what I struggle with the most right now, because I've heeled forever and just used to just cruising out of the box. You know, and I've got to go close because I can't reach, but I got to have a fast horse to do it. And to not get shook loose, especially the World Series barriers where it happens pretty fast. Is the World Series start not one of the hardest starts? It's horrible, I think.
It's
so easy
some days. Out of all the places I've been, that one is so hard.
It's so easy some days, but then there's the times where, okay, if the steer's fresh, is he going to leave or is he not going to leave? Okay, so I got to watch. Oh shit, I'm a mile late.
Yeah.
So then, okay, I can't, because you can't see nothing. It happens so fast.
So much luck.
It is. It really is. It is. And then there's times where the steers are pretty true and honest.
If they leave and they're honest, then it seems like
simple.
You can go flow. Yeah, for sure.
This is like the roping last week at Ben's roping. The steers were true and honest. The boxes were really long, but you couldn't hardly break the barrier. You had to try to break the barrier. And so many people were 0.3.
Yeah.
0.3 with a 26-foot box. You're chasing him for a minute. You know what I mean? And that is the hardest part. And then you go, you know, I go take Colts, whatever, the Wednesday night roping, and they got a normal barrier. To me, that's so much easier to read than, at least you can react a little bit. You know, you have time to react.
You can, and a chance to read the steer.
Yeah, you have time to react.
So what have you been doing now? I know you've been doing a lot of lessons.
I do lessons. I ride a few outside. I try not to ride too many anymore. 5 or 6 outside horses. I have a steady group of guys I do lessons with. You know what I mean? That come repeatedly. I have people call me all the time looking for a horse, so I help people find horses. I'm not necessarily selling horses, but more consignment stuff, and I try to match people with the right horse. I really like doing that because
I've heard of a lot of people
almost everybody
really
is happy whenever because I find the right fit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I've had good luck with that. I've
heard a lot of people talk about that, like that they've gotten some horses from you, and you do a really good job of being able to try to. This is kind of where you're at. This kind of horse right here would fit.
And I try, I don't try to blow smoke up anybody. You know what I mean? Like, hey, this is too much horse for you. You don't need this horse. You know what I mean? Or you're ready for this horse. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So, and I think that's a big deal. They trust me. You know what I mean? Yeah. They trust that I'm not going to try and, because
you're not looking for home runs.
I mean, I make a 10% commission. It's not like I'm trying to, but I'm trying to, I want this guy to legitimately do well. You know what I mean? I don't want him to be upset. You know what I mean? Because you do one bad job and then you're done. You know what I mean? But I do that. And then, I have a daughter, Marley. She's fixing to start high school. She's 8th grade. And then my other daughter, Gabby, just graduated from A&M, fixing to start PA school, and get, I was gone for a lot of Gabby's growing up because I was rodeoing. So I'm able to, now that I'm, Marley's 9 years younger than Gabby, I'm able to go to all of her stuff. You know what I mean? So, and that's really, really, me and Jody get to go do that. And it's so much fun, whether it's club volleyball, whether it's basketball, whatever.
You're old dad now. Right.
So
it was interesting too, was how, because I always followed you guys' careers when I was a kid off the Spin to Win. That was my Bible, at the time, that's when I read every article. And I mean, it was in every one of my rigs, there was not a quote or anything that wasn't read that I didn't read. Right. But like you and Stewie, like, heck, you guys are such good partners. You almost had kids the exact same times.
It's almost identical. It's crazy because Tegan is April 15th. Gabby was February 15th, within 2 months. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then Sterling and Marley are about the same age as well. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
I always heard too is like, because I always thought it was like downtime. Right. Usually it seems like team ropers, like there's a downtime. That's when the kids start showing up. You actually got to come home. Well, mine was, Creed was born the year we were ERA rodeoing.
Right.
We didn't get to go nowhere. So that's when Creed was born. Right. And then Journey was born the year before was COVID.
Right.
So I was home all the time. So yeah, there is a lot to kind of the timing of when a guy's actually home.
I don't know that we planned on having such a gap. You know what I mean? And Marley just came along. You know what I mean? So
I remember Kevin said, "All right, man, you're up."
Right. Yeah.
On the second time.
And it's about how it went down both times.
It's funny.
But
well, man, how does a guy get a hold of you? You got a Facebook, got a website, phone number, kind of for guys looking for lessons, looking for horses?
I don't really do social media that well and probably need to. Phone number is probably the best. A lot of my stuff's word of mouth. My buddy Jay Presti is making me a website and then figure out how to, it's not quite ready. Get that done. But phone number is 254-592-3516. I've had it forever,
Awesome.
So.
Well, man, I appreciate you coming on, man. I enjoyed rodeoing with you. You were one of the guys that I looked up to. Great competitor, great guy, and so, man, it was fun.
Oh, it was fun. I think rodeo was more fun back then too. It's like guys got to hang out more together.
The old school Logandale, Laughlin days, when a guy would go from one to the other, and the slacks were all the same time. Man, there was so much more camaraderie back then.
Not a problem. Like spring, go. There's a lot more to Red Bluff, and then it just had more time to hang out.
And there was no Facebook. There was no internet. So,
we didn't get cell phones till the mid-90s, probably. Yeah. You probably started with them. I didn't.
No, it was, for the longest time, it was a payphone. You collect them quarters.
I remember we buddied with Mike Macy, had one of the first bag phones. You know what I mean? We thought he was the coolest guy in the world. He had a bag phone. Everyone else had to use a payphone.
I got to get that guy on one time because there's hardly anybody back then
that
didn't
the best.
talk about being on the rig.
We'd play pitch all the time or forwards in, and he always thought you were going to cheat. So he'd be driving. He's the drivingest guy ever too, and he could shuffle cards and drive with his knees better than anybody you ever seen in your life. You know what I mean?
So lost, isn't it, nowadays?
It's crazy. I mean, we'd play cards and we talked. What's me and Luke. And I'm not a big talker, but guys did more stuff. You know what I mean? They hung out more.
Yeah.
Me and Luke didn't talk a whole lot. It was a pretty, we're both real quiet guys. Mm-hmm. So
I remember being in the rig with you guys one time, and it was a lot of, but you guys were both comfortable with it.
Yeah.
You know, when things need to be said, it was said.
Yeah. And it's crazy now that I'm older, I talk all the time. You know what I mean? But back then, I didn't really hardly talk much.
Mine was always, I think the quieter I could stay, then they would have to guess how dumb I was. That was my motto.
Right.
I didn't want to open my mouth.
You don't want them to find out.
Exactly.
I get it.
Well, man, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thanks for all the stories. That was awesome.
Yeah.
If you're interested in coming to a clinic this year, my 2025 clinic schedule is posted on charlycrawford.training. Go there and see if we are headed to an arena near you. If you're wanting to host a clinic, I have a few dates available. March 7th through 9th, March 28th through 30th, May 30th through June 1st, July 11th through 13th, August 29th through 31st, September 12th through the 14th, September 26th through the 28th. My October is open, and November. All the details and the easy sign-up form can be found on my website under the Clinics tab. If you have any questions, email me at charlycrawfordtraining@gmail.com.